All right, we're back. Another Tuesday update, second update of the week, Coinist Daily for July 2nd. Hopefully everyone's having a good Tuesday. Good start off to the week. Bitcoin volatility has still not died down. We're still seeing pretty ridiculous moves, right? And for the first time since the drop from 13K and higher, right, we're seeing a nice follow through on one of the 4-hour candles. And we're also starting to trade back above the daily open, right? Meaning the daily candle is starting to look nice and green. A lot to cover in today's episode. Obviously, we're going to look at Bitcoin first, which is what I always like to do. I think it kind of sets the scene for what's happening in the rest of the market. And I'm also a firm believer that Bitcoin's the driver for pretty much all activity that happens in crypto, meaning the alts are always pretty much at the mercy of Bitcoin, right? Whether they're moving up, down, or sideways, then obviously Bitcoin is Bitcoin. So we're going to look at Bitcoin. It's still kind of, I think, driving not only the entire market, but also most of the trading activity is going to be focused here. The brief stint and opportunity and window, as I call it, that we had for alts might be coming to a close, right? It's not a confirmed close. I don't want to get anyone down and feeling upset if you weren't able to swing a nice little alt play, or if you're sitting in some alt plays or whatever it is, right? I don't want to cause any FUD, but we are starting to see, right, immediately after Bitcoin does catch a bounce in the 9,800 area that we looked at yesterday, right? The two areas for a dip, both in the notes and for 10 minutes in the video, right? 9,800 and 10.2K. As Bitcoin is finally starting to get its first bounce, instead of just continuing to kind of decline, right, and every single bounce just gets sold off into, immediately we're seeing that effect on alts, right? So for the majors that started to bounce, right, the EOSs, the ETH, the ADA, and it's also obviously transferring to Binance coins as well. Right, we start to have some positive days. I've been using Loom and Mana as my example. Loom is the setup from Sunday, which ran to the first target. Nice little 15% swing. Obviously, I wanted the full 25, but it is what it is. Right, we're starting to see not only the majors turn around, and sure, they could also dip and continue higher. So I'm not kind of this isn't the last chapter of the book for alts. There's always going to be another opportunity. But right now, we are seeing immediately that effect felt for Litecoin, for ETH, for ADA, for all the majors, and also for the individual coins on Binance. Right? We'll talk about kind of what I think that means, how I'm approaching that. If you track my stuff every single day, I don't care if you've been in the Discord with me for a year or if you're a new subscriber and you're just kind of tracking it for the first week or so. I talk about moving slow a lot, but it's also something that I truly kind of live and actually follow in terms of my two plays for alts this week were EOS and Loom, right? I still, as things are dipping, I don't think, even if you're in 10 alts, I don't think you need to panic. And just because Bitcoin's bouncing, you don't have to market buy in. You can take things slow. There's still going to be an opportunity every single day. Things are kind of still developing here, but a lot of new fun developments, and Bitcoin's kind of playing, has been trading very, very well in this range. So anyways, let's get into it. I'm kind of rambling now. That's the intro. We're going to be looking at Bitcoin in this range, bouncing off 9,800. We're also going to be looking at the two plays that I highlighted, which are Loom hitting that first target and retracing, and EOS pretty much back to the level of when we looked at it in yesterday's stream for a potential swing. All right, talk about kind of the prospect for whether or not alts are going to be able to do well for the rest of the week, or whether or not that window has came and gone. All right, that's what we're going to dive into. The only other note, guys, is I know that I used to do these live for the Discord, and a couple of people have already messaged and said, Luke, I love the new format with the email, and I get kind of a summary, and I still get the video, but I wish I could ask questions, and I am going to bring that feature back. The way that I'm going to do it is if you're in the Discord, I'm going to have a channel, so each day in the morning or whenever it is right before the stream, I'm going to have a little thread out there or question, and if there's any topics or specific coins or things that I'm not covering enough, or maybe I go over a certain concept here or talk about Bitcoin a certain way, and you want me to do it a different way, or you want something else covered, that's how I'm going to do that and get those questions answered. Right? So that's kind of the only housekeeping thing. Other than that, I think things are running great. Seems like everyone's happy. The Bitcoin kind of plays so far have been on point. I like this 9,800 bounce, and also Loom able to hit target. Right? A lot to cover, guys. It's going to be a fun week. So getting current with Bitcoin, right? To start the week, we have the break of 11.2, just to kind of familiarize ourselves where we are, right? April 1st started for Bitcoin. That started this bull run. Call it a bull run, call it an uptrend. I know bull run kind of makes some people upset. Call it an uptrend, right? 11.4, I think, is still the pivot that my eyes kind of lock onto when I look at the Bitcoin chart. I'm going to get rid of one of these lines, right? Why 11.4? Went over this yesterday. I'm going to breeze through it right now because we've covered the past few streams. The levels that stick out to me the most throughout this uptrend that have played pivotal roles in both being resistance and now support, right, have been these previous local tops back in 2018. Why is that? Well, it's because for the past year up until January, right, we were in a bear market. And now on this 2019 takeoff, there aren't too many resistances that we just hit recently, right? So you have to kind of look at previous swing highs. I think they're still relevant, and they clearly are. They're playing a pretty big role, right? Where was the first area, right? Once again, it's using your eyes, that Bitcoin faced some major resistance on the move up. It was 8,400, right? Where does that come from? Right here. Blew past 9,800. I'm going to get back to that. And then obviously kind of this pivot has been such an important role for Bitcoin action in the last week is right around 11,400. Right, so 11,400 just to start the Bitcoin week. That's what we broke down from. And immediately when that happened on Saturday or Sunday or whenever that was, right, what was the plan for anyone that's been following along or trading on your own, right? The thought is, as Bitcoin's moving up in this uptrend, I'm going to zoom out one more time. As Bitcoin's moving up in this uptrend, right, my whole goal is to just try to be exposed to as much of it as I can. I'm really not trying to sell the top. I mean, I am, but I'm not focused on it. I'm not trying to buy every bottom, right? I'm not trying to play every single move. I just want to be exposed to the uptrend. And, right, so if we start to face a resistance, okay, I'm focused on 11.4 now, right, and it breaks down, right, expecting this area to become support, and we break down from it, that's kind of a hint to me, right, on Sunday, the stream and in the daily email, okay, I probably at least want to lessen my exposure to Bitcoin. For some people, that means hedging, right? For some people, that means maybe shorting some Bitcoin. For some people, it just means moving into cash. For some people, it just means, okay, I'm just going to wait because I can probably buy cheaper, right? So entering the last couple of days, we break down from 11.2, 11.4. That kind of sets the tone of, all right, let this thing dip. The two levels that have been important going into today and yesterday, right, that I've been looking to for that dip is I look at recent levels that have been nice supports or resistance. I don't see too much to work with. So what I did, and I swear I'm getting to how Bitcoin's trading right now. What I did was, and this kind of what we looked at in yesterday's stream, was this area, this 9,800, right? This first swing high from 2018 was a major resistance on our move up. We got stuck here, eventually blew past it. 11.4 was also another kind of major resistance before we had our blow off top. 9,800 was really skipped. And for me, it just made sense as kind of the logical little previous resistance turn support flip. It's a very pivotal level back in May 2018, right? And that is pretty much where we bounced perfectly today. So if you watch the stream yesterday or even just watch the notes, right? Now how I'm viewing Bitcoin getting to where we are today, I'm kind of viewing this action as a range, right? I think anywhere in the 10.2 area was kind of the highest dip I would like. And then 9,800 was kind of the low side of the dip, which is no coincidence that we stopped right there, right? As long as price is having 4-hour and daily closes above this 9,800 area, this 9,800 all the way up to 10K or 10.2, I view as a very nice kind of dip buying, however you want to think about it. You know, why? It's not because I'm trying to knife catch or anything like that. It's just because we've kind of now, you know, it doesn't feel like it, but we're 30% off from kind of those 2019 highs. It was also, as we looked at it in the stream yesterday, the highest 1-hour buy volume stepping in, right as we were kind of getting down into this zone, right? This sticks out to me. Why does a high little volume spike stick out to me? Some people use those, you know, the fancy volume over here. You can use both. I think they're both helpful. The reason I like to use these just traditional volume bars, I'm often using these high volume spikes. A lot of times they'll kind of mark a point of inflection, right? A point of inflection in the trend. It can be the short-term trend. It can be the higher time frame trend. And what I mean by that is it can be kind of a turning point. Right? Obviously, sometimes you can only see them in hindsight. And yesterday's stream, we could see it in real time because this 1-hour candle had closed. So if you go back in time, just to give a really quick example, and then I'm going to get to kind of my plan today. If you go back in time, right, what was the highest volume spike on the chart right now? It's right here. Right? It's literally that inflection point. So on our move down, not only was 10.2 and 9,800 kind of sticking out as the two resistance or two support areas that I wanted to focus on for a dip, right? But also when we were zoomed in yesterday and I start to kind of see, all right, this is the highest volume spike we've had on the whole move down. This to me starts to look like a bit of an inflection point, starts to look like a bit of a turning point, and it's nice to see Bitcoin being bought up right now, right? So even if you didn't play this, right, I view it just 2 or 3 days ago we were talking about, I know everyone was like, damn, I should have shorted 11.4, I should have moved to cash, or whatever it is, right? I think Bitcoin right now is proving that now that volatility is back, there's going to be a million opportunities. You know, I won't take a trade every day. Sometimes I'll take 5 trades. What I will do is I'm always going to give you a pretty objective view of what I think is happening with the trend. And if you can at least get the high time frame stuff right, I think it's going to set you up to do pretty well, right? So now thoughts on Bitcoin, right? Now that we've had a nice bounce, it's not confirmed, we could still move lower, but we've had a nice bounce right at 9,800, right? Those 4-hour candles closing above as they're holding that 9,800 level. I love to see that, right? 10.2 is kind of that first support. As you move up, what do I think is resistance? I think this 11.2 to 11.4 is once again kind of the resistance that I have my eyes on. It's the level that I'm focused on, right? It was the resistance at the end of June. It's the level that once we can break out of, we ran for pretty euphoric highs. It's also the support that once we broke down from, my mouse is doing funny things. It's also the support that once we broke down from, right, it led to kind of our turning point in our low, right? So as we move back into this is kind of this first major test for Bitcoin. I think 11.2 to 11.4 is the major test. If we can kind of close above it, right? So for me, how I'm playing this, I'm going to get into that first, and then we'll talk about the outlook for the rest of the week. Bitcoin moves so fast. It's like I say for the rest of the week, and everything already happens the next day. As we move up into this, let's say we start having, you know, as I'm viewing a range, a support and resistance oftentimes are going to have a pretty similar rule, right? So the way that I view 9,800 or 10.2, right? As long as we're closing above 9,800 or above 10.2K for Bitcoin, 4-hour and daily closes, I want to be long, right? I'm thinking that I got a pretty good price on that dip, right? Hopefully the trend can resume. So now as I'm targeting 11.2 to 11.4K as Bitcoin moves up, right? I like 11.2 to 11.4 as a take profit area, right? As we're getting into this for my trade. And then depending on how we move up into this, let's say it's a very strong move and we actually have, you know, a 1-hour close in here, or a 4-hour close. If we start having high time frame closes above 11.4, right, through this resistance zone, not below it, like we have right here, right? That to me is kind of showing that resistance is holding. In the exact same way that when the 4 hours close like this, it's kind of a sign that that support is holding, right? When there's closes below a level, it'd be a sign that that support broke. So if we can, you know, get, as price moves up into here, right, I'm probably going to fade, take some profit, be a nice little $1,000 move, 10% bounce. But if we all of a sudden have a 4-hour or daily close back above 11.4, all of a sudden I do think the trend is actually ready to resume. You can kind of see what I mean by closes versus not closing above. Last week of June, you can see all the times that we weren't able to close through this resistance level, so it's still respected as resistance. And then the first 4-hour that we do close through it, obviously, is when it ran. So I'm looking for a confirmed close above 11.4. That would give me confidence that the trend is ready to move higher. With no closes above 11.4, I view 11.2 to 11.4. I think that's the most important resistance. I think if there's any little price level that could give us trouble before then, maybe 10.9, right? If you were kind of really scared or really wanted to lock in some profits or whatever it might be. But right now, I like this dip buy. I hope some of you were patient. I hope some of you guys snagged this buy with me. We talked about this for a solid 10 or 15 minutes in the stream yesterday. Why 9,800 and 10.2 makes sense, right? Now where we're at, I know that there's probably some people watching this and saying, man, I really want to get into Bitcoin. You know, should I buy here? We're bouncing, or should I short here? We're about, like, whatever it is. I really kind of view this as neutral as I can be on Bitcoin. If we're trading in this range, right, there's not really a clear direction I can pick. If we have a close below 9,800. I definitely think we're going lower. If we have a close above 11.4, I think the trend can resume, right? And we are literally in the middle of this range. So price-wise, I don't really think it's expensive or cheap. You know, I think whatever way you're playing this, your risk reward's like kind of 50-50 before you hit the first major resistance or major support. So if I'm just looking at this with no position, I'm probably doing nothing. Right? That sucks to say for some people that are like, oh man, I really want to trade. I just don't really see a trade, and I'm not going to fire one out if I don't see it. Right? If I was waiting for a new play on Bitcoin, I didn't have one. Once again, above 11.4, I think the trend can resume. If we start closing back down below 10.1, 10.2, I'd probably cut my long because I think we would get back lower. Right? So as we're in this range, I'm just going to let it do its thing. Hopefully we can get up to 11.2, 11.4. That's where I'll fade some. 4-hour closes above, and I think the trend resumes, and I'm going to jump back on. Right? That's how I'm playing Bitcoin, guys. This has been a really, really fun first 3 days or 4 days trading this with these daily updates because well, that's a lot of fun. I'm not always going to catch the bottom and kind of be able to talk about the breakdown as it's happening. Right? That's Bitcoin. What is Bitcoin doing to the rest of the market now? Right? The other consideration past just Bitcoin price movement. After this, our top and our first lower high during this entire run, right, for the first 48, 72 hours, you probably started seeing it on Twitter. Maybe you saw it in your Blockfolio. Maybe you traded it. Some alts started to catch relief bounces. You know, it was a theme that I wanted to focus on in the Sunday updates, the theme that we looked at in yesterday's update, right? And based on Bitcoin taking a break for the first time really since April 1st, right? If you think back to Bitcoin ever since April 1st, as we've been moving up, right? The whole time we've been moving up, alts have been suffering. And it's not because alts are dead. It's not because alts are never going to come back. And it's not because whatever, you know, new theory is out there, new thread that's out there, alts will perform well cyclically. But right now, Bitcoin is moving up too fast. And as it continues to bounce right now, again, it's hurting those alts. The one time period that alts have been able to do well now for the past month or so is during this little 72-hour stretch or 36-hour stretch of Bitcoin sliding, not having 5 and 6 and 7% days, right? And immediately after Bitcoin now catching some life at 9,810.2 and resuming the trend, right? We're starting to see those alts really get hit. It's the reason why, for me at least, you know, I kind of joked about it on Sunday, right? We looked at Loom. I'm going to cover this really, really quick, and then I get to EOS. There's one pattern for alts that I still think is attractive. I'm not going to look at any new alt plays because I just don't want to play them. I like the Bitcoin swing right now. But if you are looking at alts, I do still think this pattern's helpful, whether or not you're trading it, right? We looked at Mana on Sunday. A lot of alts have formed kind of this bottom now over the past, since Sunday and since Saturday, right, on June 28th, and they trickled up 20 or 30% relief bounces, right? We have the first bottom, we have this resistance, we have the second bottom, and then coins were able to move past this level to continue a little bit higher, right? So that's what we played on Loom. This was exactly where we watched it for the stream on Sunday. What were the two targets we picked out? This is the joke I made. I know a lot of people over the past few days have been saying, you know, I'm buying alts. This is the first alt season we're going to have. This is going to be the biggest alt season. We've been waiting a year, right? I'm not selling unless we get a 2x. And I joke every single time that people say that because for the last 9 or 12 months, I don't care if people say, you know, you should never sell alts for 30, whatever it is, whatever the flavor of the month is. For the past year and a half, really, the only alt windows that have existed, you kind of have to be looking at 30 to 50% opportunities, right? So as we looked at Loom, the setup was the exact same as Mana, just following the same system. A bottom formed 26th, 28th. Here's our first resistance. And as we close through this resistance, right, where am I targeting? Well, I think that it can probably at least move to this next high time frame level, right, for a nice little 10 to 15% swing, and it did. And now it's almost fully retraced back to entry. So I'm not interested in Loom anymore. You know, if you were in it and you swung it, hopefully you bagged a nice little 10 to 15% profit. It wasn't able to make it to the full 25% profit. I don't think there's anything I could have changed about this trade to make it slightly better. I think it's just a factor of Bitcoin moving up now and hurting those alts, right? So Loom, it's back at break even. If I didn't book any profit, I would still probably bail. Can't give advice. The only other setup that I wanted to look at for alts, and as I was kind of easing into them yesterday and Sunday, was EOS. And I would also not want to be in this one. You know, I move very slow, and I say this sometimes on stream, not the move slow part. I've said it a couple times this week. I really only want to be exposed or trading alts when all alts can move up, right? And you're probably hearing that and you're saying, well, obviously me too, right? Why would I want to be playing alts if not all of them are moving up? But I think so many people will look at now one alt, whether they look at Link or they look at, some random alt, and they'll say, you know what, I'm going to hold on to this one. I think mine's going to keep going higher. We had, I think, a window for as Bitcoin was dipping, and now that Bitcoin's breaking higher, right, maybe this is alts retracing and they can continue higher. But for right now, I'm going to treat this as Bitcoin's giving a hint of strength. There's a possibility that that's ready to kind of resume the trend, and I have to kind of assume or at least prepare. If you're not, I'm not advising you at all to close your alt trades. You need to decide what's best for you. But I do think that it's probably wise to think about a scenario where, let's say Bitcoin does continue to move up, right? Let's say it hits my target at 11.2, 11.4. Okay, I imagine alts are still doing okay. Maybe they're still kind of hanging around where they are, down a few percent. What happens if Bitcoin closes above 11.4 and starts to resume the trend as it's been doing for 3 months, right? I'm not saying this to scare anyone. I'm not saying it to FUD anyone. I really think it's an important consideration to have of how well was your alt doing. Go look at the chart from June, until June 25th, right? And then kind of look at the chart today. If Bitcoin right now, it's just such a Bitcoin dominated game of if Bitcoin moves up here, right, and stops and we just range, right? Let's say it kind of looks like that. Let's say this momentum fades out, right? Any kind of action like this, alts can do well. We start getting back above 11.4, I think alts could hurt in a big way. If Bitcoin dips again, I think alts do well, right? So if Bitcoin moves up, it's not going to be good for alts. The way that I'm playing this, and I know it's not as exciting as some people like, but it's just what works for me, and I think a lot of people adapt this after a while, is I'm just so conservative and really only want to be playing those alts if they're all moving up. And right now, I think the door has kind of opened again for Bitcoin to do well, and I really would prefer kind of not to be holding and praying and hoping that it's an alt season, hoping that alts can continue to move well. I'd rather bail on EOS as it's a break even, collect my 10% on Loom, and just wait. The one thing I hoped I illustrated on Sunday, and I'm going to illustrate it, next time there's a little alt window. I say it over and over. You really don't ever have to catch the bottom. You don't even have to be first, right? I'd rather be 24 hours late into when alts start doing well, because that means alts are already doing well, and I can kind of jump onto that positive momentum. If a scenario arises where Bitcoin starts to perform well and all alts as a whole start dipping or start dropping again, then I'm probably not interested again, right? Bitcoin has to be in some kind of scenario where it stops its trend up, and the trend up has been violent, and maybe the trend up continues. And I think the trend continuing for Bitcoin would be a bad thing for all those alt Bitcoin pairs, right? So once again, I want to end the stream. I don't want it to be fear or FUD or sway your opinion if you're set on holding alts. I think that's fine if that's your view. I would just understand that if Bitcoin does continue higher, right, and if we get above 11.4 and the trend continues, I imagine those alts get hurt. On the flip side, if your view is that Bitcoin won't move above 11.2, 11.4, right, and this resistance holds as we get up in here, right, we start drifting down for Bitcoin, or this is all a fake out and Bitcoin starts drifting lower, I imagine alts continue to do very well. Right? But this is the relationship I would be tracking and focusing on, rather than just saying, what's the pump of the day and what's kind of the falling wedge on my alt chart. Right? This is the relationship that's driving every single alt. So I think there was a window. This might not be what some people want to hear. I think there's a window to swing some alts. I think that window might still be here. Alts might prove me wrong and do well for the rest of the week. And if they do, I'll be happy to find kind of another setup. I think there's so many setups and there's so many alts priced attractively that I'm fine waiting on it and kind of, I got my one Loom swing. EOS is dumping. I'd rather avoid it and just be in Bitcoin. Right? Bitcoin is giving action. It's moving up nicely. I don't have any rush to try to kind of juice anything more out of this. So anyways, guys, that's my update. Hopefully, obviously Bitcoin's been the funnest thing to trade this week, most fun thing to trade this week. If Craig's listening, he's going to give me a lesson in my grammar there. I'm sure I said that wrong. Right, 9,800, 10.2 was the dip buy. Previous two streams, previous two highlights, we covered why. if I'm looking at price right now, it's pretty neutral. I can't say that I'm a buyer or a seller here. It's as much of a coin flip as I think there can be. Up at 11.2 to 11.4, I think there's a resistance you have to focus on, even if you're not trading it, even if you're not playing it. That's resistance to watch, right? And above 11.4, if we start closing 4-hour and daily close above 11.4, right, I think that the trend is ready to continue. So this is the range I'm focused on for Bitcoin. I think much more important than understanding, which alt pops next is understanding if Bitcoin moves up and gets above 11.4, I imagine alts could hurt. If Bitcoin ranges in here or moves down, I imagine those alts continue to do well. So that's kind of how I'd be playing that ebb and flow with your alts in Bitcoin. All right, I don't have any new setups because, well, the Bitcoin setup played itself. All right, nice little, already $800 swing for Bitcoin. Right, it's been a good week, guys. Hopefully you had a good Tuesday. More of a macro stream today. I don't have any new alt updates, and it's just because I'm not playing any new alt trades. I have no alt trades going right now. If the opportunity presents itself, then we'll fire at them tomorrow. But right now, guys, I think it's a Bitcoin show. If Bitcoin dips, it opens up the opportunity again. But right now, I'm long Bitcoin and gonna wait and be cautious for all alts to show that they can actually perform well, and maybe Bitcoin show that it's ready to stop at resistance. Right? That's all I got. Have a good Tuesday, everyone. Welcome to the stream. If you're new, welcome new subscribers. Hope you guys like the format. If you don't the first day, I'm sure it'll grow on you. That's all I got. Have a good week. I'll see you tomorrow, same time. Peace, guys.